Well, hello everybody. I'm so pleased that you could be with me today because I have got a very, very special guest with me at the moment, and she's hiding sort of on the other side of this area. So my name's Judith Holloway from Tree Frog Properties, and what we do is we have an HMO portfolio, and also we're looking to expand into commercial to residential. So enough about me. I want to welcome you here because you're in the right place if you are interested in property and want to know more about it and take the all-important action. Now, I know that this interview is going to be so valuable to you because I've heard Susan speak before, and she's got gold mine after nugget in that gold mine coming out. So you'll learn some absolutely brilliant tips and hints as well about how to systemize your property business. And I found there's so many online apps or online this, online that, that sometimes it can take you away from what you're actually doing because you've got to spend time to actually find out how this particular app works. And so today we'll be learning from Susan Alexander, who's been using the power of technology to really harness her property business. And Susan is the founder of the Property Mentor. I'm looking down because I need to read it because I need to make sure that I get everything spot on. So yeah, she's the founder of the Property Mentor and is a leading coach, property mentor, investor and entrepreneur. After building an absolutely impressive multi-million-pound property portfolio herself, Susan has gone on to help numerous clients to achieve their maximum potential property investment by utilizing her coaching and mentoring experience. And typical, I forgot to unplug the phone. As I said, anything can happen live. So yes, by utilizing her coaching and mentoring experience in the specialist field of property investing, Susan has mentored hundreds of clients to build profitable portfolios, generating greater clarity, motivation, and self-belief in both life and other people's lives, especially those affected by difficult and challenging circumstances. Now, I know before we get started, there may be a number of people who are perhaps struggling with some areas of systematization, and sometimes just organizing your time can be difficult and challenging. So I'm going to flick over to Susan and say, hi, Susan, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming and being interviewed. I'm so excited.
Hi, Judith, and it's a pleasure. Really, it is a pleasure to come on with you and have a chat with people and just see, how we can help, because obviously I've been doing this for a long, long time, and what I love doing is being able to help people elevate themselves to success or whatever they want to try and achieve. That's what I do day in, day out through the coaching business, and really it's about just making sure that people can maximize out of life what they possibly want to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And which actually leads me on to the first question, because you talked about maximizing things in other people's lives. There's been a stage in your life, walk me through the process that you went to get to where you are today, because I'm sure you must have been able to maximize what you were doing just for you.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of, how I started and the things that I to kind of leverage myself, if you like, into property, one of the key things that I did was really learning how to do things and be focused. So, and my background was in HR. I worked for a lot of corporate organisations in the HR world, and what I found was that because the businesses that I was working for, I was predominantly working for companies that were new companies set up, looking to establish either a new site or a brand new business completely. And one of my roles within the HR remit was not only to build in the people, but also to make sure that we had the right policies and procedures and processes to make sure that the business ran effectively. So my background really helped me when I then went into working for myself. I was unfortunately in a position where I had to close 9 sites in my last job and make myself redundant at the end of it, which was not the best job in the world, but it was something that we had to do in 12 months. So again, it was about organising ourselves so that we could break it down and look at how we were going to manage that and make it happen within the time scale that we had. And then I had to make myself redundant at the end. And what I decided was that I was going to build a property portfolio to try and give me some security and stability. And it wasn't really necessarily about replacing my income at that time, because I was a high earner at that point in the corporate world. And I didn't really understand in the early days just how much you could make from property. But you know, in my very first year, I bought 11 houses in 1 year. And one of the things that I would say to people is that the reason I was able to do that is not because I'm in any way special at all, was really because, one, obviously there's the learning process that you have to go through and working with people that have, you know, that know what they're doing and building the right team around you. But the key part of that was having a system to do it. And having a single strategy to follow as well. But the systemising of that process was so important, because to buy 11 houses individually, not all from the same person, so they're all from 11 different people in 1 year, is not an easy feat. You know, it's not impossible, clearly, and I know people that have done a lot more than that, but you have to get yourself very well organised, and you have to follow a process for doing things. And it becomes a little bit like almost like a manufacturing facility, if you like. You systemize it, and all I did was I had a single strategy that year. I followed a process. I put in place some really effective systems that enabled me to achieve that. And what I've done since then is, obviously, I've gone on and developed that portfolio myself personally further. I've done lots of different strategies throughout the years. And so I've also then built other businesses. So we have a property management business where not only do I manage my own properties, but other people's. And again, it's about having the right systems in that business and the right people in that business to do it. And my main piece is that I've kind of followed my HR element, and I still work a lot with people and the development of people, and that's really what I love doing. And that's been about growing and systemizing that business in order that not only can I work personally with people to help them in their portfolio, but we also franchised that business last year. And in order to franchise a business, to have really good systems and really good processes to be able to not only teach the new franchisees, but so that they can then train people effectively too, and they can work with the same materials and the same processes that you work with. So it's been a real learning curve along the way. I've learned a lot. I've made lots of mistakes as well. But I've learned from a lot of people. I like to get people that know what they're doing and get people on board that can help me. And there's always a lot to learn, but I've always had a real strong element of, if you delegate it, you have to have a system. And I love delegating because I like my own time, and I like to be able to, you know, have time with family and friends and play golf and do different things that I want to do, go on holidays. And so therefore it's really important that the business can operate without me. So that was probably a very long answer to that question, Jeanette.
No, that was absolutely superb. Thank you for that, because what you're showing is a huge development. And you said, you know, I've been jotting down as you've been talking, you know, a single strategy, following the process, putting systems in place. And yes, you may not have done everything right the first time, but what you've done is you've improved it all the time. Yeah. And, you know, it's great that you've been able to use the stuff that you virtually were trained in to make it happen. You know, 11 properties in 1 year, as you've said, buying from different people, takes a lot of sort of wrangling almost. So it brings me on to the next question. What sort of, I suppose, highlights did you that really were embedded for you, that you learnt along the way? Because you said it's been a process, you've embedded different strategies. So what were the really important things that you learnt along this journey, so that other people can perhaps take some super nuggets away and perhaps implement them?
Okay, well, I guess some of the key things really have been, obviously it's really important to educate yourself in what you're going to do, because when I first started investing, I was what I guess I know now to be an accidental landlord. I had a few properties, but I didn't really know much about property investing as a professional. And therefore, education is really important. But one of the key elements of education, and one of the reasons that I've gone on to do what I do, is that I find that I learn a lot better if I can actually do it whilst I'm learning. So if I can implement it, and that's why well, it's not why I became a mentor, but it certainly supports what I do, is because I find that if I can learn what I'm doing and implement it, it will embed it in me much faster, rather than just learning it in the classroom and then having to go out and do it myself. So that's why, for me, it's been about having mentors along the way, people that have done it, but people that can also give me some accountability. So the coaching element and giving a strong level of accountability, because most of this stuff is really easy to do. It's not totally easy, but it's certainly just as easy to do it as it is not to do it. And so the element of actually getting some accountability to do it, because I do want to have the lifestyle that I have, but it's easy to want it, not so easy to get it. So I learned that quite early on, is just to, have the right people in place to support you, and the right education to support you.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you. I mean, you've talked about systematizing your business. So really, it leads on to, as I said in the introduction, there's like a huge plethora of online stuff that you can be using to help you free up time. However, sometimes it doesn't actually free up your time, because you've got to learn about it first and foremost, which is a time drain. So the question to you is, what technology have you found really useful? Because you talked about also wanting to spend more time with family, friends, and do stuff. So what has really helped you, technology bit wise, to release that time to, in systemizing your business?
Well, there's lots and lots of technology that helps, and I think you're quite right that technology is really useful. It can also be time absorbing, and so therefore one of the things I would say first and foremost is that what I try to do with my business or businesses is look at where are the key elements of potential time savers. So first of all, actually think about the process, so that I'm not just introducing technology if it's not actually going to make it easier, faster, or be of benefit. So it's about thinking about the process, and where are some of the points in your process where it might cause you to have overwhelm, or where it's very labor intensive, and start to look at how you can then use technology to help you. Or it may not even be technology, it may just be creating something that means it can be easily duplicated. So it might be a standard form, for example, where, if you're somebody in property who's dealing with motivated sellers, or dealing with people who are responding to your adverts or your information where you're trying to get inquiries back, and people are calling you, create a standard process for how you deal with the calls. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have technology. You may have technology for your answering service and things like that, but ultimately, if you have a standard process for doing something, it makes it a lot easier to repeat. It means that, if you had a standard form, you know where to find the information on the form when you go to look for it. If you file them all in the same order, you know where to find that. So you can use pen and paper still, or you could use technology like a customer relationship management process, like a CRM.
Yeah.
But the key elements of technology for me was, certainly in the beginning, was really about having, when we were advertising, and I still use it today, advertising for properties and people that are looking to sell their property. I have an answering service so that, no call ever gets missed. So it's a person that answers the phone, and we use a PA service. So, some people may not want to do that straight away. It does have a cost to it, but it's hugely beneficial. If you're going to pay to have marketing done, you want to make sure that you have someone to answer the phone. But to the other end of it, having systems in place for your property management, having systems in place for, even simple things like your diary. I know a lot of people that don't manage their diary using either, good old-fashioned file of facts, or, you know, I mean, I use technology. So I use my iPhone, it links to my Mac and my iPad, and everything's really good. And, you know, some simple little tools, you know, things like Xero to manage my accounts, I use that. And then I use Receipt Bank to scan all my receipts up, which then links to Xero, and it creates a real easy flow for me to manage my paperwork. Because that end of it, for most people, when you get the property and you've got everything moving, whether that's to a refurbishment or you're managing it ongoing, paperwork is something that people really don't like doing. Yeah. And so if you can think about how you can improve your process with paperwork and getting your accounts and your finances into order, that's a really huge part of it. And certainly, if I was to recommend to anyone, you know, a key element that's helped me, it's been the accounting system Xero, which is spelled Xero. And linked to that is something called Receipt Bank, which if you're doing refurbishments, you have lots and lots of receipts. And it's much better if you can just scan them up using your phone, stick them into Xero, it just talks to each other. Xero can also talk to your bank account, and everything can be reconciled and dealt with really quickly and easily. But there's so much technology. What's really important for people is to identify where are the pieces in your business that either cause you overwhelm or require you to do an awful lot of labor-intensive work, either personally or through other people, and how you could use technology to help there.
Mm. Yeah, because I don't think, you know, there's a one-size-fits-all at all. And,
No.
you know, as you said, it's about working out, you know, what process you're doing and how is technology going to help you? Is it going to hinder you? Is it going to totally overwhelm you? But I really like the idea of, you know, being able to scan the receipts and they link straight up to another software. So you don't have all those pieces of paper hanging around or anything.
I love it, Judith. It's like my favorite app. I just scan it in and then I tear the receipt up. It's gone.
Oh, fantastic. So have you got another really favorite one?
My second favorite app would have to be TurboScan. So it's a scanner app where, you know, I just, if I need to scan anything, a document, a picture or something that I just want a copy of, I can just scan it in my phone. I just take a quick scan on my phone. I can email it to anyone, text it to someone, share it with someone. And you'd be amazed when you deal with property, how many pieces of documents and information that you have flying around, whatever stage of the process you're at. And so it's really useful, you know, if you're with a vendor and you want to like get some documents, if they're talking to you about their repossession or something and you want copies of their documents so that you can go in and check that information afterwards, you can just scan it whilst you're there. Right through to the other end of the process, if you're with a tenant and you need to take copies of their identification and those kind of things, that can really help you, having just a simple little app. It cost me, when I bought that years ago on my phone, 99 pence I think I paid for it, and it has been one of the most useful apps I've ever had.
Okay, so what was the name again? TurboScan?
TurboScan, yeah, that's the one I use. I'm sure there's hundreds of others.
Okay.
But yeah, it's absolutely, it totally has changed my world.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. Okay, so, you know, we have talked about that being able to systemize your business can be really productive if you use it the right way. So bearing that in mind, with what you've just said, what have been the huge benefits for you in systematizing your business then? Let's look at the real positives.
Well, I mean, the real positives are that it allows me the time that I want to do the things I want to do. And for most people, that's what people want, is they want time to do in life what they want to do. They don't want to have to wait till they retire to do that. You know, I'm not ready to retire. I'm still young. Well, young at heart anyway.
Yay!
Exactly. So, you know, I still want to be busy and doing things to keep my mind active and my body active, and, you know, to take part in life and give back and do all those kind of things. But equally, I want to have, you know, time to do also the things I want to do, spend time with family and friends and holidays. And so, The real benefit is that it gives you a huge amount of time. So being able to put the right systems in place, it really does help you with that. The other thing that's a huge benefit, it enables you to delegate. If you could put, processes, if you write a process for something, guess what? If you've written the process of how to do it, you can teach someone else how to do it and they can get it right. Because you've written down the steps. And so, I found that hugely beneficial in our business, to be able to recruit people, to delegate the job, to, even outsource it to people that you haven't employed directly. It's really, really beneficial to get rid of the workload and have time for yourself.
Yeah, but in order to get to that stage that you're at, you've got to spend a little time in order to set things up correctly. Because am I right in making the assumption that when you set these processes and systems up, you go through every single one with almost like a fine-tooth comb and document it, and that takes time before you can then put it into its correct process? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go to that length, I never did that in the beginning, because, really what I'm saying here is break your business down into some key steps. Keep it really simple. I try not to overcomplicate things. So, you don't need to have it to every little 11th degree. What you have is the key elements of your business. So break your business down into simple steps. So if you have a property business and you're investing in property, there are some key steps. You've got to find the property. You then have to do the legal process of the property, to purchase it or rent to rent or whatever it is that you do. Then you have to maybe do the refurbishment work, and then or you're reselling it. And so there's some simple processes there that you then take each one and you say, okay, what are the key elements of each part of that? And some parts of it you don't need to write down, because they don't need to be documented, because they change. What I'm saying is that where you have things that happen regularly and can be consistently done, it is better to write those down so that they are consistently done, for one, but also so that it makes it easier for you to delegate it. And, if you have somebody that you delegate it to and that person needs to change, it's easy to swap over.
Yeah. Okay. No, that really makes sense. And I think, as you say, you've just got to look at the style of business that you're doing, look at the key elements and break it down from there, and not complicate it, because let's face it, at the end of the day, we want the time. And by overcomplicating it, we're just making something sort of to what we want.
You make it worse almost rather than better. And I remember when I first gave up work, I found myself in a position where I actually ended up putting into my day, I was, sitting around doing not very much, but where I used to take 2 hours to do something, it was taking 12 hours to do it, just because I had a whole day to do it in. And so I realized that I wasn't going to get any time for me if I kept that up. So really it's about organize your time and do things efficiently will not only mean that you have more time for yourself, but actually you have more money as well, because you're much more efficient. You make money much easier.
Absolutely. And when you talk about managing your time, I know you've talked about Filofax, but yours is linked up with your iPhone, iPad, and all that sort of stuff. Do you have a particular app on that which sort of sets up you can set up to-do lists, so they're sort of date or time generated? Yeah,
so I have some really simple systems that I kind of use with regards to do, but also with how I manage my time. It's less about technology. So the technology element is more about making sure that I can track the appointments and I have booked in. But I use a default diary style to organize my time. So that's basically, I have a default time for doing things. So I do coaching and mentoring. So coaching and mentoring with my clients, generally my default days for those are Mondays and Thursdays. So I know I'm always generally in the office on a Monday and Thursday, unless I decide that day needs to change. So mostly, I can be flexible with it, but if I organize the default element, I know that when I go to my diary, if I need to book a client in, it's on a Monday or a Thursday. Yeah. Then when I'm doing appointments, I generally out of the office on a Wednesday afternoon. I'll do property viewings, visit with investors. That's a Wednesday afternoon. So it makes it a lot easier when I'm booking appointments to know where to go in my calendar to find a time to give them. It also means that I can organise my time better so that I get Tuesdays and Fridays off if I want them. And that means that I'm not slotting appointments into different places, because in my head I have defaulted those times for those specific elements, and that just makes it a lot easier to organise. The second thing is that I have a little notepad, which is just a standard kind of notepad, and I have a system for using that notepad. The right-hand page is my to-do list for actions, and the left-hand page is for any notes if I'm having a telephone conversation with somebody. Like if I was speaking to you about doing this interview, you would be, the notes would be on the left-hand page. And I always put the date at the top of the page, so, you know, if I don't, I would remember roughly, because it would be I've spoken to you, I can go back to my notepad and just look to see where the notes would be from that. So it's really simple.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people they don't give simple the credit that it needs.
Yeah. It is about, because I use the right hand page for actions and the left hand page for notes, I always know where to look in the notepad to find the information. So if it's a note, I'm always looking on the left if I have to flick back through it. And it just, those kind of systematic ways of approaching things means that you're not searching the whole notepad to find a piece of information.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And again, simple. I love simple. All the way with simple, as far as I'm concerned.
Me too.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm very conscious of time as well, because I don't want to overrun on this. But the last question, and then a short tip, if I may. If you can think of all the things that we've talked about, all the things that have happened within your life, what is really the one thing, if there is one thing, that's really helped you build up your property business?
The one thing I would say that has helped me has really been about, it's probably accountability. To be fair, it's having someone to be accountable to, because and having that as a positive influence. So, you know, the positive influence and accountability probably go hand in hand, because sometimes it's really difficult. It can be lonely in the property world, and sometimes it's really difficult to stay upbeat and believe in what you're doing, and because you will come across challenges. It's inevitable. It happens whatever world and walk of life you're in. So, you know, having positive influences, but having accountability, because it's really easy not to do this stuff. It's really easy for me to go and play golf, I can assure you. That's very simple. But, you know, if I do want to keep being successful and keep moving things forward and growing personally and growing my business, then and my property portfolio, it's really important to have some accountability. And I always have a coach, a mentor, because that is, for me, that's really important. And I try to pick somebody that will positively influence my life as well, in outside of just coaching and mentoring me.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. And I think, again, some people underestimate the power of accountability, and that is huge. Just being able to do what you say, when you're going to say it, and follow through. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Because it's easy to slip deadlines if it's just you that you're accountable to.
Yeah, or you can do it another day. Oh, it's not that important. But yeah, if you've got a deadline and you've got somebody who's going to sort of hassle you or hold your feet to the fire, then yes, you've got to do it there and then. Okay, which leads me on to now the top tip. You know, I talk about, you know, best chill pills, or your best motivator that consistently works for you. So, because, you know, we've already said that property can be a lonely business, but also it can be a stressful business. And I think you mentioned something on one of the talks that I saw about stressed. Do you want to talk to people about that just very quickly?
Oh yeah, well, stressed, one of the things I use in one of my talks is, if you look at the word stressed in reverse, it spells desserts. And so, you know, if you think about people that get stressed, they tend, you know, not always, but for a lot of people, certainly for me, if I'm stressed, then I turn to food. And it's usually sweet food. So I just kind of think that's quite funny that it actually spells desserts backwards. So if you want to stay away from being stressed and eating too many desserts, then it's really important that you organize yourself and you know, get systems in place. And I think, you know, my top tip certainly for today would be about that organization and making sure that, you know, it isn't the easiest thing to do. And that's where, for me, accountability does help, because, you know, if you don't do it, you'll just live with what you have for a very long time. And, you know, I was looking at some quotes yesterday on, you know, stress and changing your life. And one of the quotes that really resonated was that if nothing changes, nothing changes. So you have to do something different. If you're in a position right now where you're feeling that, you know, systems really help your business, or you want to change something, you need to change something to make that happen. And my personal recommendation is clearly to get a coach and mentor, get the accountability you need, and get on the path that you need to be on, and achieve it. Get there as fast as you can, because there's no point messing around. You only live once.
Absolutely. And you want to live more to play more golf, obviously.
Absolutely.
So that's brilliant. Okay, so thank you very much for that. I felt as I've got an awful lot out of this, because sometimes also it's good to hear it again, and simple is good. And I think for me, just looking at where you are with your business and breaking that down and what you can actually do to just very simply systemize things. And it could be doing one particular sheet that you can use many, many times, and have that in place. So it just saves all the hassle. And I think the other thing is the stressed and dessert. I remembered that from months ago, from when I saw you speak. So it is very powerful. So thank you for that. Thank you. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Susan. It's been an amazing interview. Is there anything else that you feel that you need to add?
Well, I mean, I've got a huge amount that I can share with people. You know, if anyone wants to connect with us, they can go to thepropertymentor.com, book a free coaching call there, or, you know, if you've got a specific piece of help you need that, you know, won't be served through a coaching call or contacts, just email us at info@thepropertymentor.com. No, sorry, it's info@thepropertymentor, isn't it? It doesn't have a .com in the end. But yeah, just connect with us, and if I can help you, I absolutely will. I've got so much knowledge in my head and also written down in various places. That's just one part of what I can share.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. And your enthusiasm just comes across totally and utterly. So thank you so much for that. And, you know, we're on schedule. So thank you so much, Susan, for being such a superb interviewee. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Judith. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye.